It is with profound sadness we announce the passing of our beloved mother, grandmother, aunt, great-grandmother, Mary Madliene George, better known as Mahare, Maud Flood, and Mahars, originally from Choiseul, but resided at Mont Sapin, Grand Riviere Groseilliers, who passed away at the Victoria Hospital on Thursday, 6 August 2015. She was predeceased by her husband, Lawrence George. Left to mourn her three daughters, Emma George Morris, also known as Elma of Bizet, Mary Madliene George Long, also known as Marilyn of Marisol, Veronica Ade, also known as Veve of Mont Sapin. 4 sons, Saint-Gis, also known as Tisson, or 69 of Rivière Miton, a former employee of Quartz Solution Limited, John George, also known as Zabwick of Castries, Septimus George, also known as Atan of Moshi, employee of Marjorie Rennick and Company, Hendrickson Lazarus George, also known as Killy, or Old Killer of Labon, employee of Caribbean Metals. 13 granddaughters, Monica Thomas of Corinth, senior sales executive of Hot FM, Jacqueline George Alphonse of Marisol, proprietress of Fantastic Cuisine, Joanna Louis, also known as Prisca of Grand Riviere, employed with the Ministry of the Public Service, Virginia Adonis of Grand Riviere, secretary at the Groseilliers Secondary School, Lorna Eugene of Moshi, Vanessa George of Mont Sapin, Anthea George, also known as Alina of Marisol, Jeromina Ade William of Mont Sapin, Nellie George of Marisol, Sarah George of Carolee, Shakira Augustine of Labon, student of the Division of Teachers Education, Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, Kelly Constable, Toraine George. 16 grandsons, Sylvester George, Christopher James George, also known as Chris of Mont Sapin, Peter George, Hygienius George, also known as Ben of Yesikwe, Stephen George, also known as Kute Lung of Marisol, Don George of Vanna, Andre Adonis, also known as Harry of Degazon, Benoit George, also known as Benny of Marisol, Edmund George of Corinth, Ali George of Marisol, Jason George, also known as Bai of Marisol, Vaughan Saint-Omer of Canada, Roland Saint-Omer of Rivière Miton, Arnold George, also known as Anelli of Labon, employed as a pastry chef of St. James Club Morgan Bay, Charlie George, also known as Charles of Labon. 15 great-granddaughters, Anna Laforce of Canada, Kershel Germain of Brooklyn, New York, Marlyn Kelly George of Marisol, Hygienia George of Yesikwe, Samvina Dikai of Brooklyn, New York, Mishka Nadej John of Grand Riviere, student of St. Joseph's Convent, Daniela Kelly Castang of Marisol, student of Entrepot Secondary, Crystal of New York, Aletta George, Shaniqua Miracle George of Marisol, student of Vidboutai Secondary, Amelia James of Moshi, student of Moshi Primary, Faith George of Vanna, Star George of Vanna, Alicia George of Moshi, student of Grosley Secondary, Arletta George, Ella Marie Harris. 21 great-grandsons: Bradley, also known as DJ Mikey, Michael Alexander of Grand Riviere, Darnell Jermaine of Brooklyn, New York, Thaddeus George of Vieux-Sequoia, Yari George of Vanna, student of Vidboutai Secondary, Darnell George of Grand Riviere, Darnell Castang of Marisol, student of Corinth Secondary, Kervin Ade of Mont Sepa, student of St. Mary's College, Antonio George of Marisol, Jermaine Ade of Mont Sepa, student of Dame Paulette Louise, Benjamin George of Mont Sepa, student of Grand Riviere Combined, Patterson George of Mont Sepa, student of Grand Riviere Combined, Ryan Philogene of Grand Riviere, student of Dame Paulette Louise Primary, Ethan Auguste of Marisol, student of Dame Paulette Louise Primary, DeAndre Paul, student of Grand Riviere Combined, Josh and Joshua of Marisol, Dandal Vinay of Grand Riviere, Daniel and Dawn Castang of Marisol, Chris C.J. William of Mont Sepa. Daughters-in-law: Morella Santome George of Rivière-Miton, Jacinta Augustine, also known as Yolanda or Miss Bumsy of La Bonne. Sons-in-law: Simon Maurice of Bizet, George Long of Marisol. Granddaughters-in-law: Renika George, employed Johnsons, Diana George of Vanna. Grandsons-in-law: Angus Alphonse, also known as Bobby, proprietor of Fantastic Cuisine, Malcolm Chris William of Mont Sepa, Danny Castang. Brothers: Thomas Nelson in Piero Viefo. Children of a deceased brother: Hamilton Fontenelle and brother Hendy Nelson. Children of a deceased sister: Ramona Nelson of England. Best friend: Miss Felicata of Marisol. Special friends: Romise Senol of Mont Sepa, Miss Thelma of Mont Sepa, Miss Flora, also known as Yaya, Felton Magloire, also known as Ress. Also left to mourn: the Nelson family of Choiseul and Souffre, the St. Martin family of Le Riche Choiseul, the Saint Croix family of Choiseul, the Fontenelle family of Auger Viefort, the Eugene family of Le Riche Choiseul, the Isimbert family, the Popo family of Choiseul, the Jean-Baptiste family of Souffre, the Tissot family of Labrie, the entire community of Mont Sepan. Other family and friends both here and abroad too numerous to mention. The funeral service of the late Mary Madliene George will take place at the St. Joseph the Worker Church, Grosley, on Wednesday, 19th August 2015 at 3 p.m., and then to the Grosley Cemetery for burial. The body now lies at Creeks Funeral Home Limited, Vidboutai. Note: persons attending the funeral service are asked to wear a touch of pink.